So what happens when an SNL comedy legend who's fascinated with the Shroud of Turin gives his life over to Christ? Stick around and find out. I'll be right back. Well, hey, gracious gang, it's Mike Creavey from the Gracious Guest Show here with you today for a very special treat. I'm so thrilled to get into this and share this interview with all of you. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do that. Please hit like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff down there, and share this far and wide. I am thrilled today to be able to sit down with my friend Joe Marino of Shroud fame, you could say. Joe's been on this program a couple times before, sharing his story, sharing a lot of his research into the Shroud, into issues over the dating of the Shroud in particular. And Joe is just this walking encyclopedia, basically, of all things Shroud. And a few months back, I was talking to Joe about trying to get more testimonials on here. We've covered and will continue to cover a lot of the interesting details about scientific, properties of the Shroud, questions about the dating, revelations that the image on the Shroud itself can give to us about the suffering of the man on the Shroud. But I wanted to have more time on this show dedicated to people's personal testimonies. What brought them to this interest in the Shroud? What, if any, have they seen in their own lives that are, compelling sort of spiritual moves or even miracles? That they might believe are somehow connected with the Shroud in some way. And in talking to Joe about that, Joe kind of blew my mind when he said, well, what about Rob Schneider? And I basically was like, what do you mean, Rob Schneider? I was like, Rob Schneider? Okay. And I had just heard that Rob had converted to the Catholic Church. So this was, I heard that news back in late 2023. And then in early 2024, Joe, lo and behold, says, well, let me look into it. I think Rob might do it. And sure enough, Rob was tremendously gracious and agreed to come on with Joe and I and to talk about his experience, Joe's experience, and a project that they're working on together, which I think you're really going to find fascinating. So without further ado, let's jump in to my really exciting chat I got to have here with Rob Schneider and Joe Marino. Check it out. All right, wonderful. Well, Rob Schneider, Joe Marino, thank you guys both for coming on the Gracious Guest Show here.
Thank you for having us, Mike.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Yeah, and it's funny. I was just laughing because Rob, the last thing that I saw you in, funny enough, was just over Christmas. We introduced the girls to Home Alone. Home Alone 2. So when I said today, my daughter said, "Who are you talking to?" I said, "Remember that bellhop in Home Alone 2?" And she's
With
laughing. She goes, "Oh yeah."
How old is she?
She's 7.
Yeah,
She's
she
7.
can see that movie. Not my other movies.
Is
She can see that one. She can see that one.
We'll roll them out gradually, but
yeah.
But I wanted to just jump in right here.
Doesn't it look like I just mentioned before we were recording?
Oh, sure, yeah.
My buddy Joe, he looks like he's about to land a 747 Boeing coming in from Chicago to Los Angeles. 1990653. You are clear for landing on runway 5G.
We're multitasking here today. He very well may be doing that in the middle of this. But I wanted to ask you guys here, and I'm going to go back and forth here. But Joe, of course, viewers of this channel, who have followed your work with the Shroud have seen you, here and in many other places before talking about the Shroud. But for those who might need a quick little, sort of refresher, why don't you just tell us briefly about, just your backstory and your involvement with the Shroud specifically?
Well, I was born and raised Catholic in St. Louis, Missouri, and never actually heard of the Shroud in grade school or high school. And then I went to college for a few years and didn't know what I wanted to do, and started working for the government, and became agnostic for a while. And but I was reading a lot in philosophy and religion, not just Christianity, but all kinds. And when I go to a bookstore, I would always go to the philosophy and religion section first. And in the spring of '77, I went to a Walden bookstore at a mall near me, and saw a paperback with the picture of just the face on it, the negative, which is the lifelike image. And it was called The Fifth Gospel, subtitled, "Is This the Face of Jesus Christ?" So I thought, well, this looks like interesting reading. I'd never heard of the Shroud, and I bought the book. And it was the year before Stirp went over to Turin and studied it for 5 days and nights around the clock. And I read the book in one sitting and was just fascinated by it. And of course, in those
Yeah.
days, there wasn't a whole lot of information in the Western world on the Shroud. It was well known in Europe and Italy, of course, but there
Hmm.
wasn't a lot of information in the United States at that point. So I read the book, and based on the knowledge that was known at that point, I thought, you know, I think this cloth could be the authentic burial cloth of Jesus. And
Mm.
then I started uh, gathering materials, books, and writing places. The Holy Shroud Guild. I got some slides, 35 millimeter slides, and started, writing people and whatnot. And then um, with my religious background being awakened, I ended up joining a monastery in St. Louis in 1980, and then I started to put together a slide lecture. So I was lecturing in the St. Louis area
Hmm.
and started writing the scientists and gathering more and more. And it's just been a topic that has never let go. I mean, I try to keep up to the
Yeah.
minute on it. Unfortunately, now I'm retired, I can do that. But it was just a subject that has grabbed me from the beginning and will keep me to the end.
Sure. Well, and Rob, I mean, those who are tuning into this who may have just clicked it because they saw you and they know you from from all of your movies and Saturday Night Live and all these wonderful, sort of comedic, roles that you've had over the years, that might not know what you've been up to the last few years, or might not know that you've had this conversion recently. What's been sort of your experience here with the Shroud and just sort of this discovery of your own faith?
Well, I mean, first of all, I first heard about the Shroud around the same time Joe Marino was talking about, and the I would say around 1981. I remember my music teacher John Bentley talking about this. Another another Catholic and talking
Hmm.
about, and my mother was Catholic, and
Sure.
talking about the Shroud, and it just seemed like this is a, if there is such a thing as something tangible. Um, that just I remember where I was sitting, was in watching the high school football game at the time,
Hmm.
and I remember just being riveted by that, the idea that there would be this um,
Mm.
proof, physical proof of Jesus Christ and the sufferings of Jesus, was just astonishing to me, that this existed.
Hmm.
And then it just kept coming back and back, and later in my life, and then as a as I worked my way through different religions, and with very much interested in Buddhism and Zen Buddhism. But the thing about Christianity is it's the only one that claims to be a living God that is alive, and
Right.
that was a something that just stuck with me. And it's also stuck with me how it is a religion based on forgiveness and love,
Yeah.
and that's hard to uh, that's unique. You can't match that in any other way. And so it was actually during working with on this movie idea, and the story of Joe and Sue, his wife Sue,
Hmm.
um, that it just became more and more real to me. At the same time, the world seemed to be careening on a course of, I would say, very much like in the 1920s. You feel a sense of what happened 100 years ago. You feel a sense of what's happening again, and
Hmm.
it seems to be um, an organized darkness that's happening. And but I don't think that darkness is what led me to back to Jesus. Was, I think Jesus led me back to Jesus, and I think
Yeah.
that's how he works. And seeing that the wonderful gifts of my beautiful children, and
Mm.
wanting them to raise them in love, and a religion of forgiveness, or in a house of forgiveness. And that's
Sure.
really what Jesus Christ is offering, is a house of forgiveness. And a home is a place, which is a beautiful thing. The best definition, a home is a place when you go there, they have to let you in. And so that's the thing about,
Yeah.
I've never felt more of a
Mm.
welcome in my life than through Jesus Christ. And at the same time, I'm still learning. And but I will say that when I had I have a terrific priest here, Father Mike Passo, and he introduced me to Father Ripperger.
Mhm.
And Ripperger gave a speech that was exactly what I was thinking, what was happening to the world. And
Mhm.
and this is in 2021, I believe, early 2021.
Okay.
And it seemed to underline and support the suspicions that I had of what was happening. And at the same time, we're working on this Shroud movie, which
Mhm.
is getting closer and closer to getting made. It's just trying to make a movie for $20 million is independently financed. That's like
Mhm.
trying to independently finance a spaceship to go to the moon. It's not an easy endeavor.
Sure, I bet.
So,
Mm.
but this has been it's been a wonderful journey, and I also think it's a journey that it's important to share. And
Sure.
as my as my friend Joe has been you know has been really a great teacher with about the shroud, and the more that the door that was opened, it's
Mm.
absolutely stunning. I mean, it makes
Sure.
me realize, because it's like, how is the possibility of this cloth, how did it exist? Well, the only reason it was possible that it could last 2,000 years was, at all, if it's real, is that it's Egyptian linen. So it's
Mm.
a freak of that this happened. And then, so you start with there. And then where they tested the cloth, and his Joe can tell you much better than I, where they did the original testing of the cloth is where what Joe and Sue discovered was where the nuns had done this, what they call an invisible weave.
Mhm.
So they added, can you imagine how invisible weave, can you imagine the care and the dedication
Yeah.
that these nuns who dedicated
That
their lives to
devotion.
Jesus, to
Yeah.
that devotion for every stitch on something that was the burial cloth of their Lord, how they would work to make this thing perfect, and they made this invisible weave. And unfortunately, that's where the test was done. And it was at
Mhm.
3 different labs, or 4, Joe,
I think it was it 3, Joe?
where they did the
3.
testing.
It was
3
3?
tests.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, but as they cut into the cloth,
Oxford, Arizona, and Zurich.
and so
Right.
as they cut into the cloth, the deeper it went, the further the dating went back. And so it went from 14th
Sure.
century, 13th century, and I think the earliest was, 1172 was the carbon dating for the earliest one, Joe.
uh,
Joe was about
Around there, yes.
1172,
Is it?
Mhm.
Yeah.
around there.
So it was about a
And
span of about 150 years.
so it seemed like the
That's
further you go
yes.
back, it would go back. And so they just tested it in the wrong place. And I think
Mhm.
that Sue and Joe have proved that. Uh, and then when you think about, they can't, no matter what, even if they say that that's the dating of it, if it's a medieval forgery, then this guy would have had to say, okay, there's going to be this invention in 500 years or 400 years, 300
Right.
years of the photograph, and then we'll have a reverse negative, and I'll do the reverse negative, so that way there was. So it just
Yeah.
seems to be too inconvenient, the reasoning behind its
Sure.
falsity.
Yeah.
And I choose to think about the fact that all the things that was talked about in the Gospels is what's proof on the cloth. And Joe can attest to
Yeah.
whether it's the the crown of thorns,
Mhm.
whether it's the bleeding from a stab wound. Um, it's there, and it's on the very top layer, most of it. And nothing happens by accident, Mike. And as I had a child, 2 children in the last 12 years,
Mhm.
and one of the things when you're looking up, preparing like you did, Mike, recently, preparing for your child, you see that um, if you look, you can see that when the human egg gets fertilized, there's a flash of light,
Mm-hmm.
a beautiful flash of light that is like, this is life.
Yeah.
And I believe that similar flash of light was what caused when Jesus was resurrected. That
Wow.
that flash of light was the same thing. It was God's
Huh.
flash of light for a new life, and that was what caused the image to be in the uppermost part of the Egyptian cloth.
Beautiful. Huh. Well, it's I'm so curious here. Well, Joe, let me ask you real quick. We had talked beforehand about this idea of unexplainable events. And your experience with the shroud is anything in particular about the shroud that you would mention. I mean, there's so much to say, but anything in particular for you that has really just got that kind of wow factor. You know what I mean?
In 1986, I heard that there was going to be a Shroud conference in Elizabethtown, Pennsylvania, and I was extremely interested to go because I hadn't been to one, and some of the STIRP members were going to be there. And I looked at my calendar, and I thought it was going to be on a Wednesday and Thursday, and I thought, why in the world are they having it on a Wednesday and Thursday? And I won't be able to go, to that since I had duties at the school, monastery school we ran and stuff. So I said, I just kind of forgot about it, and then
Mm-hmm.
then I checked the dates again, and I realized I'd been looking at January instead of February on my calendar. And I thought, oh, it's a weekend. Maybe I could make it. And then I thought, oh, let's see. I'll have to get permission from the superior. I'll have to get $500 on short notice. I'll have to get somebody to take the basketball team that weekend that I was supposed to coach. I
Mm-hmm.
was taking a theology course, and there was a paper due every Monday, which meant I wouldn't have been able to get the paper done. So I thought, oh, it still doesn't look good. So that Sunday at Mass, it was about a week for the conference. A lady in the parish came up to me and she says, "Hey, I hear there's a Shroud conference in Pennsylvania coming up." And I had looked to see if there was publicity about it, and I didn't hear a thing. And of course, that was pre-internet
Mm-hmm.
days,
Right.
1986. So I said, "How did you hear about it?" She says, "Oh, I don't know. I heard it somewhere." She says, "Are you going to the conference?" I says, "Boy, I'd really love to go, but there's just too many obstacles. I'm just hoping they have videos of it, and I'll watch the videos." And she says, "Oh, but that's not like going to the conference. You ought to go." She says, "I'll ask Father Luke, who is the superior." She says, "Where is he?" And I looked up, and he was literally walking straight toward us. And she stops him on the spot and says, "Father Luke, there's a Shroud conference in Pennsylvania this coming weekend, and Brother Joe would like to go, but he's afraid to ask you. But if you'll let him go, I'll pay for his plane ticket."
Oh my
So he
goodness.
was kind of in a spot. So he asked me what duties I had, and I said, "Well, I think I could get those covered and whatnot." So then I walked into class the next morning, which is the Monday morning, the week before the
Mm-hmm.
in our class schedule. So that paper that was going to be due next Monday won't be due to the following Friday. So the paper was out of the way, and then a couple other things. Uh,
Just lined up.
Went by the wayside, and I got to the conference and I met, Jackson and Jumper for the first time and went
Wow.
to dinner with them, and they were, saying all sorts of secrets in front of me. I guess they figured they could trust the monk. And after I got back, um, there was 5 people that thought it was authentic and 2 that thought it was a
Mm-hmm.
fake. And one of them was Walter McCrone, who had been saying since 1980 that it was a painting. And the Associated Press guy in Pennsylvania made it look like Macron's findings was the latest thing. So he it was a kind of a fake news story, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to correct the record. So I wanted to write a letter to the editor. And when I got back, and but I had my school duties, and I'm waiting all day for this day to get over, and I'm rushing to the monastery to go write the letter to the editor. I had this experience of hearing an inner voice telling me to go pick up trash. Now that was a job I just took on my own because nobody else did it. We had 150 acres. There was trash all over. Nobody was picking it up, and it just bothered me. So I always would once a week at least go pick up the trash. But that was the last thing I wanted to do at that moment. But the voice was insistent, so I did it. And then that took me about an hour. And at the end of it, I was ready to rush into the monastery again, and in the parking lot where I was at, I heard a car door slam, and I looked, and it was the regional vice president of a big radio station in St. Louis, KMOX, which on a good night can be heard in Canada. And he was familiar with the Shroud. He was a devout Catholic, and I asked him if he saw the story, and he says, "No, I saw it, but I haven't read it." And I get you on the radio about it. He gives me a guy's name, and I call the guy at the station. He says, "Oh, we were going to interview Walter McCrone. You can come on and you can debate him." So I was a little nervous because I hadn't done radio at that point either. And long story short, I debated him. The host told me he wasn't that impressed by McCrone's arguments, so at least I held my own. But the funny thing out of that was that I heard this inner voice, I obeyed it, and because of that, I ended up on the radio. And then the program was produced in St. Louis and then distributed, syndicated throughout the country.
Wow.
So that was the first big story. And then that I had a shroud relic, and at the time, a nephew of mine had a brain tumor. So I was going to go to the hospital and touch the shroud relic to my nephew's head. And one of the books that I had about the shroud was a condensed booklet called The Holy Shroud in Four Visions. And it told the story, the scientific evidence compared to the visions that like four nuns that had through history about the shroud. And I couldn't find the booklet, but I wasn't upset because I had found the original book that had been published in the 50s from which the booklet was made, and that was on order. So the day came for me to go try to touch the relic to my nephew's head, and I was in my monastery cell, and I grabbed the relic and I started kind of thinking about the whole theology of relics being able to affect cures, which is in the realm of mystical theology, which reminded me of the booklet that I lost, because that was mystical theology. And the precise moment I thought of the booklet, I heard a noise behind me, and I turned around, and the booklet had hit on the cement floor right behind me. Now, unless I accidentally taped the booklet to the ceiling and it fell down, I have
St. Anthony moment right there, I think,
for why that booklet hit it precisely at the moment. Yeah. So those are two of them. That gives you an idea of some of the experiences I've had like that.
Well, and I want to make sure to ask you guys, you can both share here about this this movie project, which Rob, you mentioned. I mean, how long ago did that kind of cross your mind, this idea of actually kind of taking something like this on? And is the preparation for that substantially different, than
Joe
one of your more
Joe Goosen, the good Catholic boxing trainer, friend of mine, he said, there's a story here that is the greatest of all stories. And the most important of all stories in human history. And that kind of got my attention. But then he showed me, this is already 12 years ago, some information on Joe and then on the Shroud. And I remember, and that always piqued my interest. And so it's been that many years. And then it finally came to a time to start writing this. And so a very good friend of mine, we started digging through, trying to find the story there, and we got Joe's books, and Sue and Joe have a book, and they have two books actually, and it kind of tells the story through the search, because what you want to be able to do is to tell the story, and not just the technical side of the story, but from people a real love story, which was what Joe
Yeah.
and Sue had, and they and it's through their eyes and through their dedication that they were able to really kind of unlock what these, the genius scientists miss. And I really thought that I thought that was just a movie at the time. I didn't realize it would be like a religious awakening
Yeah.
for me, as I think it'll be for other people too. So I
Yeah.
think, especially in the last few years, the push to move this to another place, which is to get this film made, because I think it plays out. Not It's a mystery.
Mm.
It really is. I mean, with the thing about a lot of the Christian films, if I may say, um, they just don't have the Hollywood, um, you know, technical craft down. So there's some of the
Right.
stuff. I mean, there's some has been very good, but
Mm.
for the majority of it, you really have to have it. I mean, you have to treat this as an entertainment piece. In other words,
Right.
bring people in and tell a story.
Yeah.
And I just think that this has the elements to be a film as impactful as the Passion of the Christ, if not
Oh,
more.
wow.
And
Wow.
I really think that is. I think that the Shroud is the key to an awakening. And I think at the same time that as Father Ripperger was talking about, I think the world can use it
Mm-hmm.
at this time. I don't think I do think there's going to be, and I think that people, the Catholics out there, that the Catholic faith now is more attacked than any other faith in the world. And it's for a reason. And I think that there is
Yeah.
a very organized assault on Christendom, specifically Catholicism, and I think that that's not an accident. I think it's an
Sure.
organized thing that's happening, and I think I think there'll be an increase of it, and at the
Mm.
same time, I think there's going to be an increase of people brought to the faith. Now, the Catholic Church, like any group of men, is going to have potential flaws in it, and the Catholic Church is no exception. However,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't take away the fact that it's the closest to the actual words of Jesus Christ, and that relevance, and that is the Church of Jesus, and that they can, whatever people can make claims, and they could try to denounce the church for the wrongs that the church has committed. It doesn't take away from the teachings
Mm.
of Jesus and from the fact that this is the one true church. And
Sure.
so that's what brings me to it, and why I will always come to the defense of the Catholic Church. So
Have you found, Rob? I'm just curious, like and just to share whatever you're comfortable sharing, but like have you found just in your own career and your own friend circles that this journey that you've been on has been received fairly well, or at least just respected, where you're
yeah,
at, even if it's not where they're at, or I'm just curious.
yeah, yes and no.
Okay,
Yes,
I
I
guess it
find it.
depends.
Sometimes I'll get stopped at the airport, and a Catholic person will just give me a hug, you know. But I think it's
Yeah,
important to step forward, and I think
yeah.
it's also important to testify, and it's important to follow. And
Mm,
so I
yeah.
think it's not just, um, and it has to end for your relationship with Christ to grow. And
Mm,
so that's the challenge. And I don't know if my work, if I'm going to continue to be able to do the same work I've done. I don't know. But at the same
yeah,
time, I see somebody like Kevin James, and he's doing
yeah,
great. He's
yeah,
a very good Catholic, and he
yeah,
actually, did a mass in Latin. I mean, and we did
yeah.
a prayer, and we did it in Latin. So I mean,
Wow, I love
so
Kevin. Yeah, I love his
Kevin's a
work too.
remarkable,
Yeah.
remarkable man, and
Well, and he helped a lot of people through the pandemic too with that YouTube channel and those the Canaan guys, and that was just such a delight. It
yeah.
was a good
Well,
witness, and funny,
he's a
like
real
really
good
funny.
man. Well,
Yeah,
that's the thing
yeah,
about it, is you can have good humor to it, and you can
yeah,
have joy, which I
yeah.
think is a very important element,
Right.
and,
Yeah.
to bring that. But I really want to bring this story, and I want to bring. Uh, I want to make sure that people have an opportunity to really to know that there is an actual receipt. And that's what
Mm.
that's what has been described as the cloth. And I think
Yeah.
Russ, what's his last name, Joe? Russ
Braille.
Braille.
Yes. Yeah.
He gets the credit for that, for terming that. Like, it's the receipt. It's the
Yeah.
receipt of Jesus Christ,
Mm-hmm.
of his gift to all
That's
humanity.
awesome.
I mean, that's a pretty
Yeah.
beautiful thing
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah.
to way to describe it. And I'd like
Well,
to
is
bring the receipt to a film that really, and I think that's one thing Hollywood does do really well, is to bring a story with really good actors, with good music, and with
sure.
with all the technical craft that Hollywood can bring, to bring a story that is the most important story in human history.
Sure. Well, and that's I mean, kind of related there. I mean, and you mentioned this is just about your own kind of style, the things that you're sort of most known for. Is there something substantially new and different and challenging for you with all of your experience, but approaching this project being something a little bit different, or are you tending to approach this with some of the same kind of style, work ethic? I don't know how to ask it, but does that make sense? Is it
No,
a
it's
substantially
different.
different kind of
This has to
project or
be
different?
something that's guided. You
Yeah.
can't be something you would force your way. Just like what Joe was talking about, listening to that inner voice, um, and also being aware and being humble,
Mm.
and making sure that I mean, truthfully, Mike, the reason that this hasn't been made is because I wasn't ready, and I think I have
Mm.
my own work to do spiritually, and I have my own work,
Sure.
and then and we have to have people that are all there for the right reason, and that's really important, is
Yeah.
because there's uh, we're going to get one shot at this,
Right.
at making this film at the
Yeah.
level that we want to make it, and we so it has to be everybody there for the right reason, and there's no better reason than to want to bring this story of love and of this eternal sacrifice to every person
Yeah.
who has their heart open to it, and even if their heart isn't open to it, I want them to know that this is an amazing story, and that's why
Mm.
this works as kind of for better or worse to describe it, kind of like a Da Vinci Code, because it really is
Mm.
a mystery. And
Yeah.
you have a group of scientists who are saying this is a medieval forgery.
Right.
And then that's where you start with. They're discounting this. This is not real. Somebody made this,
Mm.
and this is fake. And
Wow.
and to go from there to say, no, this is actually the birth. I'm sorry, this is
Yeah.
actually the cloth, the burial cloth of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And so Joe, was there a point for you where you felt like maybe they are right, or did you ever have a doubt about it? You just were in, or was there a point where was the Rubicon for you?
No.
Mm.
Um, I have been studying the Shroud 11 years at the point that the C14 dating came out,
Mm.
Yeah.
and I was very well read even back then. And so when the C14 dating came out, my immediate reaction was, there is something wrong with those results. It just didn't match with what Stirp did. Now, Stirp, sometimes Stirp is accused of being pseudo-religious zealots, and that's
Yeah.
nonsense. I mean, these guys came from Los Alamos National Laboratories, Sandy
Right.
Laboratories, Jet Propulsion Laboratories. Some of them were Christians, but they were Jews, agnostics.
Hmm.
They didn't approach it from a religious point of view. They simply tried to find out how the image got on the cloth, and they never did find out. They all thought they'd find it in 30 minutes and go home. And test just didn't match with the something wrong
Yeah.
with that test. And
Yeah.
over the years, I recently published an 800-page book on the C14 dating that was pretty much like 30 years of research
Got
put
that over there.
together to show how ridiculous the methodology and the actions of not only the C14 labs, but unfortunately the actions of the Catholic Church contributed to problems. And if you're interested, my book's on Amazon. It's called the 1988 C14 Dating of the Shroud
Hmm.
of Turin, a stunning expose.
I'll
And
have it
Eight
linked,
I
hundred
must
but
say
pages.
I
yeah.
priced it low to begin with, and Amazon has kept on reducing the price. Yeah, 800
Okay.
pages.
Well, I got to dig
So there's
into
a
that
lot.
one.
There was a lot of egos, agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Joe, and you have
You won't finish
correspondence
it
in
in one
there,
night.
like
I guarantee you that.
you have like original correspondence in there. You got, I mean, it's really got a
Yeah.
lot of stuff to dig through. Yeah, yeah. Wow.
And I want to tell you, I did, because I'm a Shroudy deluxe, sort of like a Trekkie. There's Trekkies, well, I'm a
Yes.
Shroudy, and a lot of it's behind the scenes and correspondence and stuff. And people tend to be more open in secret reports and correspondence and stuff. So I fleshed out a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
details and reveal things that the public generally never learns.
We got to put that in the script, Joe. We got to put that in the movie too. Unfortunately, in the movie we don't have 800 pages. We got basically 2 hours.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we got to put that in. Well, good. So, Mike, I do have to get.
I know. I'm
there's
just gonna.
Plenty
Yeah,
of material to. If you want intrigue, the 800-page book's got plenty of intrigue.
Yeah, I want to.
Well, I know, and I do.
We got to put that into the script, but
I'm so thankful that you guys could come today. I know you gotta run here, but I've been asking people on the show lately. Is there anything that you'd want us to pray for specifically for you guys, for this project, for you personally? Anything for the viewers or listeners to take to heart today?
Well, pray for this movie to, if I can jump in, Joe.
Yeah.
Pray for this movie to get made by the people who all have the right spirit and the right and want to make this movie to bring other people to this incredible, most powerful story that exists. Yeah. I can't believe that there hasn't been one. That there, I mean, it's just remarkable. So I don't think it's an accident that it's waited till this particular moment, in this particular time, in the history of the world, to make this movie at this time. Mm-hmm. For what we've seen, what the governments are capable of doing to people and squashing people's individual liberties. And the last place I would say to pray for the United States, because really is the United States is the last bastion of individual liberty and freedom. And that is the only reason we got out of this COVID tyranny. And I think what the global elites have planned for us, I think we need to pray for this country to stay strong and stay free. Amen. And I would ask for that. And hopefully we can make this sometime at the end of this year so we can have it out for next Easter. It'd be great.
Awesome. Joe, anything from you in particular? Or?
Yeah, I would just say, in terms of learning about the Shroud, a Hollywood movie is probably a little easier way to absorb it than reading a peer-reviewed scientific journal by a theoretical physicist.
Yeah, well, certainly, there's no love story in there.
And learn about the Shroud.
Yeah. Well, the story of Joe Marino
and I'm Sicilian, so if just one half of my relatives go to the movie, so.
Well, no, but seriously, Mike, if I could say anything, the story of Joe and Sue Benford, where as a love story, and how they work together to make this, makes you realize there are miracles that happen, and it's a beautiful story, and I'm very honored that Joe would entrust me to tell this story, and that it has to do with the biggest, I think the most important story in human history is Jesus Christ and his gift to all mankind. I mean, there's nothing that can come close to that. And not just my career and anybody's. So we just want to make sure that we can do this and do it in a way that really gives all the glory to God.
Well, absolutely. And I again, thank you guys so much. Rob, thanks for all the laughs and more to come too. So God bless you guys and take care.
God bless you, Mike. Thank you, Joe.
Well, that was really exciting for yours truly, as someone, who grew up seeing Rob on the screen and always getting a real kick out of his characters, and to see someone who's known, right, for so many of these zany kind of roles, right, like just really goofy, a lot of physical comedy, just some really sometimes bizarre characters, right? He has that real, kind of hilarious, goofy reputation, but to have this genuine heart and this so deep, sincere commitment now, to our Lord and his own journey, being willing to share that with us. I was just so honored and really delighted to have him on today and have that opportunity. So I hope you enjoyed this. Please share it far and wide. Again, keep your eyes peeled here. Any updates I get on this production, you be sure that I will let you know about that and pass that along to you guys. In the meantime, check out Joe's book down below in the links, and other episodes that he has been on before. You can check back in my previous videos, go back and find those on there. So thank you so much for tuning into the Gracious Guest Show today. I'm Mike Creavey, and until next time, don't forget to wonder. Take care.